Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for joining me. In today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make this stylish cowl neckline dress. So let's dive right in. For this project, I used 5 yards of duchess fabric. I started by folding the fabric into 2. Then I measured 6 inches down from the top of the fold to create space for the cowl neckline. I ruled a straight line across. This will serve as our shoulder line. Next, I measured the full length of my dress. Added 2 inches for sewing allowance, and marked that point. I ruled a straight line across and cut the fabric along that line to separate this piece from the rest. Then I folded another piece of fabric into 2, placed the first folded fabric on top of it, and used it as a guide to cut out the second piece. Now, we have 2 folded pieces, making 4 layers in total. This allows us to cut out both the front and back pieces at once. I pinned all the layers together to prevent them from shifting. On the shoulder line, I measured and marked a neck width of 4 inches since this dress won't have a zipper. For the neck depth, I marked 2 inches. I connected the neck width to the neck depth to create a curved neckline. Next, I measured the shoulder width by dividing my shoulder measurement by 2 and adding 1 inch for sewing allowance. Below that point, I marked 1 inch downward and connected it to the neckline to create the shoulder slope. To find the chest line, I divided my bust circumference by 6 and added 2 inches allowance. I placed my tape at the tip of the shoulder slope and measured down vertically to find the chest line, then ruled it straight across. For the armhole, I found the midpoint along the chest line. Moved half an inch inward, and connected it from the shoulder slope to the chest line to create a smooth curve. Moving down, I marked my shoulder to waist, shoulder to hip, and shoulder to knee measurements. On the chest line, I measured my bust circumference divided by 4 and added 2 inches. Because there's no zipper, and I want the dress slightly loose, I made sure to add that extra room. On the waistline, I measured waist circumference divided by 4. Added 2 inches allowance and connected the bust to the waist. Quick tip. If you have a larger bust and find it hard to pull on dresses without zippers, you can mark the same bust measurement at the waistline to give more room. Once the dress is on, you can cinch it at the waist using the loops for a snatched fit. On the hip line, I divided my hip circumference by 4, added 2 inches, and connected it to the waistline. For the knee, I took the exact measurements on the waistline, including allowance, and marked it on the knee line and added 1 inch extra. I then connected the knee measurement down to the hem of the dress, using a hem width of 20 inches to allow for easy movement. I also added half an inch sewing allowance to the top of the shoulder slope. At this point, the back neckline is complete. Now let's work on the cowl neckline for the front piece. The area between the shoulder slope and the chest line is very important. To create the cowl, I traced this area using transparent paper, carefully following the shape. I pinned the paper onto the fabric at the armhole edge. To set the cowl depth, I chose 7 inches. I pinned the paper down and marked the new neck width and depth for the cowl. I connected the neck width to the center fold with a straight line. Traced out the shoulder slope and armhole, and then unpinned the template. Now it's time to trim the cowl neckline. Since the fabric is folded, I trimmed through both the front and back layers at once. After trimming, I removed the folded piece at the bottom to use for the front. This leaves the one folded piece for the back. I then trimmed the neckline, shoulder slope, and armhole for the back piece. And just like that, the pieces of the dress are ready. Here's how the cowl neckline will look once it's worn. Next, it's time to cut the facings. I placed a folded fabric under the back piece and traced the neckline and shoulder slope, giving it a depth of 6 inches before cutting it out. For the front piece, I traced and cut a facing with a depth of 12 inches. I overlocked the bottom edges of both facings and stitched them to the neckline of the dress by 1/2 inch, carefully following the shape. Now, for the flower decorations, I used white organza fabric. For large flowers, I cut 30 inches long and 4 inches wide strips. For smaller flowers, I cut 10 inches long and 2 inches wide strips. Then I burnt the edges slightly to prevent fraying. If you want an even neater finish, you can replace the facing with a full lining. Attach the lining after stitching the flowers to the dress to cover the stitch marks. Simply use the front and back piece to cut out the lining again, then attach the lining like we did the facings by sewing at the neckline. Before assembling the dress, I made the loops. I cut a strip 2 inches wide and 30 inches long. Folded the edges inward, folded again, and stitched down. Then I cut 4-inch strips all through from it. For the lacing strap, I used a strip 3 inches wide and 60 inches long. I folded the sides inward by 1/2 inch, folded again, and stitched it straight down, finishing off the end neatly. To position the loops, I measured from my shoulder to the waist, inserted the loop between the front and back pieces at the waistline, and pinned it in place. I also placed loops 1 inch above and 1 inch below the waistline and repeated this on the opposite side. Make sure the loops face the front side of the dress. Now, to assemble. I placed the front and back shoulder pieces together, right sides facing each other, making sure the facings are aligned, then pinned and stitched them together. After joining the shoulders, I stitched the sides with 1/2 inch or 1 inch seam allowance. For the sleeves, I measured the armhole circumference from the dress, then folded 2 pieces of fabric into 2 for each sleeve. I ruled a starting line and measured vertically to mark the cap sleeve line. On the cap sleeve line, I marked the armhole circumference I measured on the dress, connected that point to the starting line to form a slant, found the midpoint of that line, and created a soft curve by extending 1/2 inch up and 1/2 inch down from the midpoint. I added 1-inch sewing allowance at the side. I wanted a bell sleeve with a length of 25 inches, so I added 1-inch allowance, making it 26 inches total. At the wrist, I marked a width of 20 inches. And smoothed the curve at the tip by marking 1/2 inch inward. I trimmed out the sleeves, hemmed the bottom by folding once, and repeated for both sleeves. Finally, I attached the sleeves to the dress, hemmed the bottom of the dress by folding 1/2 inch twice, and stitched it down. And that's it. The final look of the dress. I really hope you found this tutorial helpful. Give it a try and let me know how it goes in the comments. If you're new here, please kindly subscribe, like, and share my tutorials. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of my new uploads. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next tutorial.